Yeah, so here we are after many months in internet time, but actually only 2 months in real time. We are back with Holliday Mountain Madness graphic novel, um, Punch the Artist episode. So humiliate and recriminate the artist episode. So
yay, it's my job.
That's right. Well, also the writer's job. Don't forget.
I wouldn't dare.
Oh, come on.
You're the lens through which my genius shines. So I would never.
Yeah, that's true. There is a kind of it could be bad too.
Yeah, I can just be mean to both of you. It's fine.
Sure.
Just keep it fair and even, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how's everybody been doing? How's your holiday stuff? And
I actually took a break from everything, and it was lovely. Like, I didn't do anything. I've not done any Ghoul Guide stuff. I've not done. I've not done any writing. I've not done anything at all. It's just been like so sort of busy traveling and other things and moving. I was like, yeah, I don't have time to do everything else, so I need to focus on like life stuff and get that out of the way. And then as of Monday, I'm back on everything again. So I've got a piece I've got to write for an anthology before the 20th. I've got a magazine article I've got to write ASAP, really, and some reviews I've got to get done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it for like immediate, oh God, this has to be done. Yeah, I mean, the first short story I wrote is actually out in an anthology in like a week, I think. So I'm officially a published author now. Yeah, and it's a really horrible story. Now, which I think you probably read already if you read the link I shared a while ago.
Yeah,
so
it was great.
Yeah, that's out there now, ruining things for people. Well, the next story that's going to be different, very different. Side of things, a little bit more bizarro than anything else, I think. The concept for it's been a lot of fun to come up with, but yeah, I will talk about that later because mostly we're here for comic book and berating.
So kind of related to your story, what do you think? I mean, because your story kind of touches a bit on this whole serial killer apprentice, you know, the sort of sometimes I mean, in your story, I don't know who would be the mentor, who would be the apprentice ultimately, but it's sort of fascinating these duo serial killer teams that were usually there's a stronger personality that pulls into its orbit some weaker personality, and they sort of team up. I always thought that was a great thing.
Yeah, I think she's going to end up being the one in control who makes the decisions.
Right.
And I think that he's just going to become a tool for it happening.
Right.
And I think that's because it's, I mean, the whole idea is that she's thinking about how little her life has been and that this is the most sort of elevating thing for her in such a horrible way. And I think that that's exciting for her, and therefore she's going to pursue it more than he is on more of a calculating thing. So I think she would specifically target people for their qualities and their lifestyles rather than, oh, it's a woman. Which seems to be, which is more sort of his concept is, it's a woman on her own, I'm going to go for it. So really, she's the worst person at the end of it, you know. The thing I was worried about is it's the concept that it is somebody who has been raped, not sort of seeking help and not fighting back against it, but accepting it. And that, of course, is not what anybody wants to do, and it's completely the wrong thing to do, but it makes for an interesting story.
Right.
And, you know, it's nice to have the first thing I ever write to go out there, be rather controversial and see if everybody hates me afterwards.
Yay, that's good. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Are you familiar with Carla Homolka? You know, she was, I can't remember the name of her boyfriend or husband, but they were a duo.
Her and her boyfriend, and it was the younger sister, wasn't it?
Well, I think they actually killed the younger sister.
Yeah, they did. She was in concrete blocks, wasn't she? Dumped in the.
Right. And then they I don't know how many people, maybe 7 or 8 different rape murders. There was several after that.
Yes, yeah, and she's out. I know she's
Right.
out now.
Very controversial,
Yeah.
But that's a
Canadian.
Yeah,
right, Canadian.
Yeah, because I think that she did that whole kind of like, oh, I was influenced, or I was forced to do it.
Right.
And then after the fact that they did this, they then found the evidence that she had actually agreed to things. There were letters, there were things from her, but I think it was a matter of what's the word? Double jeopardy. She couldn't be tried for the same thing twice.
Right. Right.
So yeah, she's out, which is a little bit scary, because if she's that easily convinced to do this sort of thing, what else is she easily convincible of?
Right.
But yeah, people like that is scary.
It's probably the case though that she's kind of under at least a certain amount of scrutiny and probably has a long-term, although maybe it's over by now, long-term probationary. You know, like I'm sure she's got to be at least somewhat scrutinized. But yeah, I mean, ultimately she will, live her life. The funny thing is that there are a number of cases of people who have engaged in that kind of criminal behavior and have served time or have served time, long time, and then get out because the term of incarceration is over.
Yep.
And don't necessarily go back to doing it. Of course, the girl that we're talking about, the sister, I mean, she was essentially pushed into doing the actions, like
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is different than Homolka and her boyfriend, who are actually engaged in it, like actively into it. So it usually is the case that people like that, I mean, are suffering from Stockholm syndrome or something anyway, and PTSD, and their recidivism usually doesn't happen. But if Carla Homolka got out or somebody like that, although they won't, but if they did, I mean, that would be where you'd really want to focus your radar.
Oh no, Carla did get out.
Yeah, she's out.
Yeah, she is out. The sister, they raped and murdered her little sister.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Carla, I didn't know that she was out.
Yeah, she's out. He's in prison still.
Who came up with that brilliant plan?
Yeah, exactly. Literally, it was because
it actually worked for them for several years. They had several victims over time. It wasn't just.
No, she was just the first one. I think it was he convinced the sister to let him have sex with her. So he convinced his girlfriend to let her have him have sex with her little sister, and then she wouldn't be quiet, so they covered it up. They killed her and put her in some concrete blocks and dropped her in the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, I see. But I mean, like, how did it come that that Homolka was
released?
Yeah, was it because was she able to, like?
I think she got a plea deal for blaming him for everything, and she was coerced into activities, and she's innocent victim.
Oh God!
And I believe after the fact there was evidence. Sorry, I'm big into serial killer stuff, so I think after the fact it was found that there were letters and messages between her and him.
Oh, she was definitely an active player.
Oh yeah, she knew what she was going on. She knew, and it was more so she was almost finding the victims for him at this point.
She engaged in it too. I mean, she was like two sociopaths who find each other. Sociopath love.
Yeah.
No, well, see, that's
we were discussing this the other day when there was yesterday with the shooting at LA airport. We ended up talking about Bowling for Columbine and the Columbine massacre, and the fact that it was the fact that two sociopaths were able to find themselves in this school, and it's what damage can be caused when these people find each other and play off each other, and what goes from there, and it's terrifying.
Right. And the protagonist in your story, Pippa, as a reader, my interpretation was that she undergoes this horrific experience, and instead of being crushed by it or recovering from it, she says, "Oh, this is a tool that I can use."
Yeah, it's almost like when people think they're doing something right, but they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. It's the fact that she's now going, I can help people have this experience and have the same epiphany that I've had and go on and have a fulfilling life. It's not the way you want to go about it, really.
Well, even that would be a highly manipulative thing to say in order to say that what people want to hear, who are in governance of deciding sentences or release of people. I mean, I think that it's very clear that one of the common threads that, and you would know about this more than I would because of your, research into this stuff, that most of the people engaged in this kind of criminal behavior are sociopathic at the very least, and or have narcissistic disorder, and will
Oh
lie,
yeah.
will lie
Yeah.
and be able to, maintain the credibility in that lie utterly, almost utterly, without detection. So you would think that they would have just said like, oh, of course you're not going to do anything. Of course not. Okay, so let's tighten the key up a little tighter. Let's. But that's maybe it's a function of the difference between Canadian justice system and American. Is that possible? Are they more lenient or more willing to look at you know
I'm just realizing how much my hair is expanding. Sorry. I'm trying to put my headset on. It's just going. Woo.
That's all right.
But yes. So, Greg, what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, I did get a page done, and I thought I had scans of it in here, but here it is. I mean, it's right here.
Awesome.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm trying to line it up properly
There we go.
because the scans are actually on my desktop machine and not on my drive. But
Oh.
here is actually the page. So.
Awesome.
Yay.
That's so cool.
Actually, I'm gonna just for a second, not for ego, but rather just to keep it consistent. I'm just gonna click on that so that it does keep cutting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Can you click it so we can just see it from you?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So basically, this is the scene that Bill's written. That I had a little bit of input on because of my crazy ideas too, and it was just like there is a point a little later in the beginning. It's not the actual first page, right? Because the new script starts kind of directly where it leaves off.
Right. Okay.
And we'll be getting the father on his end towards the house, basically. And I have this really great. I have actually expanded your the getting to the house bill with a number of pages because I saw in my head a sequence of it that is kind of stretches it, but it's cool. So don't trust me, it'll look cool. But I had to skip forward because those pages are hard for me to figure out how I'm going to draw because they're going to be requiring that opening sequence is going to require patching photography and other kinds of elements. And so I have to really kind of figure out what I need to draw, what I can't, what I have to use other stuff. So I was like in a block and I was having trouble. So basically I just picked another part, and since this is stuff I love to draw, I just figured it was easier to break my logjam by just drawing a page that I could draw without even penciling it, which is the case of this. So, and it's just the scene where the spider, what I've called the Spider Queen. I don't know if Bill's got a real name for her yet, but basically the dark she, whatever she is,
yeah,
who's the dark mother of this tephonic, the Golden Centurion or whatever. She has to walk into this theater, and followers are decadent and of the period, and she walks by her guards and enters the room, and she's not just distorted and has spider arms and stuff, but she's also much bigger than they are, so she's like this giant, towering over them.
Yeah.
And I'm either going to fill in this last panel, or I may just bring those figures down because it's a little it's a little cramped. So what I might do in Photoshop is actually cut these people out, bring them down, draw on a separate piece of paper more of her, and expand her, and put in like the guards and things, and throw them in Photoshop.
She looks like she's going to be very elegant.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when I think spider, I think elegant. I don't think, because I like spiders, I don't think sort of spider. I think sort of dark and elegant and very sort of not cliche vampiric like, but that sort of dark and smooth moving and things like that, and flowing almost.
Yeah, well, the last page of the last printed book, although it is not what's last page up on the website, which would encourage people to want to buy that printed book, is, I'll show you in just a second.
Now Now this back page, is that on the, you can get the ebook version, or is that settled now, the ebook version, or is that still to
The ebook
happen?
is not settled. I've had it reject the file a couple of times, and I've got to I have to actually contact someone at what is it called, Comics Now or RPG Now or whatever it is, because I want to crack this nut with them. I don't know what the reason is, because it's standard comic format. It's actually the PDF that went to the printer, so it is in all ways it is correct. But for some reason, it's having an issue with it. And I don't know if it's a size, if it's a resolution issue. I can't figure it out yet. But
so if people are to buy the ebook once it's up and ready, that will have the back page that you can't get on the free version.
It'll have the last. It'll have what is it, Bill? Was it 8 pages or 4 pages? I think are different from the first to the second printing.
Yeah. There's like,
I think it's 8 pages. Yeah. So.
I'm just popping up the link for our chat on all the pages at the moment. So people who have been waiting for updates can get through and check these out. Okay. Right, so we're up on Facebook on all of my pages, and on the Holliday Mountain Madness page, and up on Twitter as well. Okay. But yeah, it's been weird getting back into the swing of things again, but I was very excited to sort of touch base with you guys and find out what was going on, and let you know that I wasn't completely disappearing. It had just been weird Christmas period and moving period and everything, and being away, because I was in Scotland for from the 23rd of December right through to the 2nd of January. I was in Scotland, so again, it was that was great, but I didn't get time to do anything.
So that was convention stuff and
no, that was just boyfriend.
Oh, that's just boyfriend. Oh, I thought there was both. I'm sorry.
No, convention is February the 18th and 19th. I'm there for 2 weeks to get convention stuff. So for the first week, I'm going to be there helping out, get stuff ready for the convention if they need me to help. And second week is just sort of hanging around and doing stuff that we want to do. But no, we're going to go up the Gothic Rocket, which is the name of the sort of, I suppose, not the real name of, but there's a tower in Edinburgh city centre, and it's absolutely stunning Gothic tower. And it's just so different than everything else that's there. I mean, if you Google Gothic Rocket Edinburgh, you'll see it. So we're going to go walk up that, because I've never been up it before.
So is it I forget what they call the tubular parts of a castle or a fortification, but is it basically just one of those with an ancillary building?
No, it's no. This is standalone, sort of in the city centre. It's not with the castle.
So it's a true tower.
Oh yeah, it's a true tower. But with the castle, when the outer walls, the gap between the outer walls and the inner walls is actually a bailey, which is where my last name comes from. But no, let me have a look. I'll show you. Well, I'll show you my iPad screen so you can see it there. That's
cool.
That thing is right in the city centre.
Love it.
It's just, it's really, really, and it's dark. There's a better picture, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So so that's there's a picture of it.
I
think the picture that's on my Facebook is us just standing below that.
I can understand the rocket now. It's totally makes sense.
Yeah, so you can climb up it and everything. It's open to the public. You go right up to the top of it.
It looks like it looks like something that should end up in the Black Hole movie from the 1970s.
Yeah, it's so out of place with everything else there. I mean, the other buildings are old and stone and stunning. I mean, they're like that's just on the corner from it. Yeah, so Edinburgh is just a city of old. It's stunning. I love the place. I mean, I used to live there anyway, about 4 years ago. So I mean, I love it just for the architecture. I'm big on old architecture. It's like a really, it's small and everything seems to be like, you go into the older parts, it's all cobbled still, and I mean, you can walk across Edinburgh in a day because it's relatively small. I mean, compared with London, if you take like one of those fun bus tours, I mean, you're on a bus for like 7 hours just to do like one part of London. If you do in Edinburgh, you can do the whole place in 2 hours.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, if you're ever looking for British architecture sort of stuff, come to Edinburgh. It's the place to go. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being back. I've got a year before I go there. So yeah, before I move again. But yeah, it's good. Yeah, Greg, absolutely love the page. It's gorgeous,
Yeah,
and I can't wait to see what you do with the spider queen.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm just waiting for my excruciatingly slow laptop to open the image of the page from the other issue,
Ah, okay.
so I can kind of show you. Why is it?
It's because you're actually having a Google Hangout with us that it doesn't want to work.
Oh, okay. I see what's going on here.
It's just sort of going no. It's New Year. It's a Saturday. I want to sleep. I don't want to help you be artistic. But how are you anyway, health wise and stuff over Christmas? Have you been alright and things?
Better. Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, I've been having really, really intense fatigue issues, which is kind of a turn on.
Oh yeah, it will be, yeah.
With fibromyalgia, it's always like that. And it's funny because I've always had a here. Let's see now. Here we go. Come on.
Yay.
Oh yeah.
Can you guys see that now?
Yeah, I've seen that image before.
So
yes.
Just to answer your previous question, I mean, this is the Spider Queen who appears at the end of the book after cutting to Wyatt Earp trying to exhume the corpse, which is of course not in the coffin, and then we cut to this mysterious, cadre of spooky old European assassin-looking characters, and then behind them is this monstrously beautiful and terrible.
When I see her, I think Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, sure.
Devouring mother.
Yeah.
That's what she is essentially.
So one thing I think I remember if I remember correctly, your process for doing this. Hadn't you'd got a layer with writing still on it, and you tried to remove it, and it came up with the orange that you've got there, and it looked really, really cool. Yeah, so I love the effect of it.
You see the lettering on her left side, and it said, "What is it? Fairy Fae, we will fillet." And then the other one says, "Grail King, I'll." Oh, I can't read it. I can't even read.
Something a Grail, his something.
Yeah. If I find the original drawing, I could probably tell you. But it was just like I was just writing little bits of dialogue about these, like, these weird, sinister toadies. That's how I sort of see them. Because they're so completely corrupted and taken over. But they're still. It's almost like pathetic children who, are chiding. Like, oh no, we're gonna sink our teeth into them or something like that. I don't know. But at least it gives Bill some stuff to chew on.
Yeah. Well, underneath their robes, would they be distorted as well, or are they just would they just be like average in your imagination? Are they just average person?
I don't know. That's something I leave up to Bill.
Yeah.
Basically, when it's this kind of inverted stuff, where it's like I make a picture like this, and Bill trusts me to like stick it in the story. What happens is, like, he'll look at it and then suddenly he'll riff off of it and come up with some really brilliant ideas about what to do with it.
Because they're almost non-entities, because all they are is follow.
Yeah,
and it's almost like a representation of them as non-entities with just the black and the white.
Something to say about that?
You mean you're talking about the flunkies here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's not necessarily where I think you were going, but there's something that's always very intriguing and a little kind of disturbing about a room full of people in either ritual clothes or masks. It's just something it's been used a lot in film, and there's something, I think it toys with a lot of our brain that is geared to interpreting faces, and that's I think why people get so weirded out by dolls. But it's interesting if you've ever been in a room full of people with masks, even if it's just something like a crew party in New Orleans or something like that. There's definitely an element of the weird there, you know.
Yeah.
And I think people use that historically to shed inhibitions, you know, whether it was Carnival or what have you,
or the Inquisition.
Right, Charivari, right. I mean, then you're attacking with it, but it's an interesting thing, you know. That scene is it has film, and we haven't gotten there yet, and so some of what happens is them looking at a film. And there's also something very interesting and disturbing about early films. We've talked about it a little bit before, but you know, especially when there's this element of maybe a staccato movement because of the, you know.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That I find incredibly unnerving, and again, that relates almost to the Spider Queen, because it's just the movement of a it's just in my head that all kind of relates. But that I do always find that in films it's uncomfortable. There's something about it that just makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. And again, with the not seeing people's faces, I mean, that's how you interpret a conversation. You're looking for familiarity in the faces. Are they smiling? Am I smiling? You know.
Right.
But if you can't see anything, then it is very unnerving. And when you've got you know, people moving that way, plus the old film style, you know, it's really, really sort of it would just make you go, ooh, no.
There's also an element not only of seeing other people, but when you're used to seeing, like I think you just mentioned, you're used to seeing people react to what you're doing, and when you're not getting that reaction, when you're not getting that massive data, am I doing this right, wrong, is this acceptable, not acceptable, I think it can be very freeing. And therefore you get, you know, then that's kind of where we're going with the Freemasonic order. You know, I think Greg's trying to convey that. It can be good or bad, you know, how freeing that can be. I mean, it can be a good thing, but it also can be pretty terrible if you've got dark desires, which they certainly do. So it's interesting.
Well, I understand the whole sort of, you can be anybody you want to be. As soon as you put on that robe, you put on that mask, it doesn't matter who you are underneath. You can be anybody you want to be.
Right.
But I do like that concept in things. That I understand completely what you mean by being so freeing.
Have you ever seen Morris Men? I mean, obviously you probably have, like in the kind of Morris dancers and so forth. Oh
yeah, no, I know Morris dancers. Yeah, it's an English thing. Yeah, right. Terrifying.
Yeah, where was I? Was it Bath? I can't remember where I was, but it was somewhere in Somerset, and there were Morris Men, but they had crow faces.
Yes, so you'll get that. Yeah, the crow faces.
Right. So they had these big crow masks. And I was like, this is like stirring something pretty deep, you know what I mean? And watching it, the rhythm of it.
Oh yeah, it does. It gets a little bit strange. It's whether they're doing it with hankies, then that's not so. It's when they're doing it with sticks, and you've kind of got the noise and the aggressiveness of that on top of it as well. Right. And with the crow masks on, it's and again, that sort of relates back to almost plague times. I mean, that's when you generally had that, was those the doctors that went around with those, you know, with the herbs and spices in the nose of it.
Right. The plague doctor.
Of course, you'll know. Yeah.
Right. That's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I was reading a book. There's a pretty gem of files. It's called Experimental Film. I spent the holiday. I had trials, which is great, fantastic. But in the interim, I was trying to stuff as much horror reading and films into that as I can, and that was a pretty good book, fairly well known over here. She's a Canadian writer, but it really exploited, you know, as much as you can in prose, you know, the eeriness of, they find these old, you know, 1910, 1920 era films, and mayhem ensues because they capture sort of a spirit in the film that actually now has access to modern times, but it's quite good, and it goes along those same themes. There's also a cool short story by Laird Barron. What was it called? Oh, Hand of Glory. It was really cool. It's a sort of a Lovecraftian, I don't know, two-fisted Robert E. Howard, you know, protagonist meets like Lovecraftian horror and cultists, but it had a lot of references to, I think, Eddard Muybridge's, it's hard to pronounce his name because he twisted it up, the spelling of it, and how eerie they are. and it played a lot into it. And so that's somewhat of it was interesting because this is something that we were working on many years ago, actually. And so some of those themes came up in Barron's short story, Hand of Glory. And I thought it was interesting because, we're kind of hooking into the same with Gemma Files' novel. It's this idea of not only the eeriness of it, but also this idea at the time, I think Greg and I were talking about this, that there were a lot of occult societies that were very fascinated and put off or enervated by film because, in European occultism, just laying a kind of broad stroke of it, I mean, a lot of it, at least how it survived today, is there's a lot of emphasis put on recreating realistic mental imagery. So they believed and believe that if you can, immerse yourself into a photorealistic depiction of something like a scene, that this would actually have an impact, right? Especially if you lose sense of your body. And so I think these, like the Golden Dawn types around the turn of the century, they're probably really fascinated by film because they're like, well, we believe that we are achieving certain effects or whatever by our ability to do this with our minds. And there it is. There, we can manipulate people or psychologies because we're manipulating imagery like we do in our meditations or our work. And so I think that was a lot of the fascination for those occult groups in the turn of the century. This particular group, which was a real group, they were particularly aimed at trying to mix technology with what they considered to be occultism. And so we talked about the tepaphone, and there were certain the European occultists of the early 20th century were apparently in fear of this device, which they believed that could kill you. It would amplify occult energies,
mind waves, and
right.
Yeah, I mean, I love the image that Greg did of the guy with the tepaphone chest.
Right.
That was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it is. The thing is that resonates today. I mean, you sort of think of it as being a much older thing, but again, you fall back into these creatures and things like the creation of Slender Man, and people falling into the idea of that and having that be something that influences their behavior now. And you go, yes, cultism still exists. It's just either much more well hidden, or when you see it pop up in little pockets, you don't realize what it is until it's either caused something that's incredibly shocking and has affected lots of people, or generally that's one of the things that as a British person you think America, that's where the cults come from.
Right, not like that there was rampant Scientology all over Europe and in England and all kinds of other
It's
stuff
terrifying. Scientology is terrifying. I've actually been past the British sort of Scientology base in London.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
it's just funny that Europeans get really like, the cult stuff happens over there.
And it really doesn't. It's
like,
just
no,
it really doesn't.
You guys have plenty of it yourself.
Oh, we do. We do.
Yeah,
we have so much of it. It's just automatically everyone goes, oh yeah, cults, America, and it's like, no. I said a lot of the stuff over here, they just go, oh, it's traditional. No, it's still a cult. You're dancing naked around Stonehenge and going into paganism and going into groups within the paganism and stuff. Yeah, no, that's still exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I would make the argument though, at least, that it's a hell of a lot healthier. That iteration of it,
they're more just dancing naked places and following witchcraft and things like that over here, which again that's all right unless you end up with things like Wicker Man. And
this is a great movie,
okay. Please, not the Nick Cage one.
No.
I wouldn't even watch it.
That doesn't even exist.
No, it does not exist.
Doesn't even exist.
And doesn't look at it.
Just leave him covered in bees in a corner.
Yeah, and just to wander a little bit, it's movies like The Wicker Man and almost everything that came out of Hammer, and I forgot the other company that Hammer sort of distributed its movies under, another label, but that's all that is a huge influence on Bill and I and things that we're doing. That's one of many influences, but it's a really big one because it's like that's sort of the cultural reservoir of kind of like mass media. Mass market entertainment, but meeting up with incredibly charged, potent, like earthy, real, old legends and stories and magic and stuff like that. I don't think you can there's nothing that compares to being, 10 years old and watching any Hammer horror film and not having, and having that imprint on your brain.
Oh yeah.
Of what the supernatural is and what sort of earthy gothic,
Well, because they can't do that now. I mean, you see some good films come out, but it's never the same effect that they had, and it's never. It's like some urban legends and some of the things have been so overdone now, and it's so much CGI and things instead of using. I love when people use prosthetics, and I love when people use puppets, and it just is so much more real. But no, I completely get what you mean about like the Hammer horror stuff, because that's when it was your first introduction into sort of not high budget. At the time it would have been for the time, but it's like some of the stuff there was just mind blowing compared to other parts of media that were out at the time. And it's with urban legends and things, that's something that I love. I love when it's traditional stories and there's a new take on them. And like with Wicker Man, it's the characters. It's down to behaviors that gets it for me. It's normal people who have become not normal, pretending to be normal, and it's all that multi-layered, weird, uncanny valley kind of. Yeah, it's just.
And then, of course, this poor son of a gun who has no idea what he's in for. I mean, he just really has no clue, and he thinks he's, and he's so steadfastly, self-assured about his authority in all things, both as a person of science and a person of the church.
Yeah, Edward Woodward, I think it is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Have you seen? I take it you've seen Hot Fuzz. And having Edward Woodward becoming one of the cultist people in that film, and it's almost exactly this. It's a modern retelling of the thing. Yeah.
So it's like this. It's very interesting because it's like this person who is so rooted in his belief in God, his belief in a number of things, including his belief in being a part of the British police, service, or I don't know what you guys call it over there, but being a policeman, and then at every turn, he has no authority.
Yes.
So even on a psychological level, it's an incredibly potent story. But then you add in the other components, which are
it is because we're
really deadly ones.
Yeah, I mean we're given a set of rules to live by, aren't we? And he falls into this situation where these people live by their own set of rules, and all of a sudden everything you've ever learned, you've grown up with, goes out the window. You don't know how to process things the same way. It's what is right, what is wrong.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's basically a goat to be burned.
Yes, he is.
That's all he is. He's basically just a goat.
But he gets to be an impressive, towering goat man sacrifice.
But I mean, like his it's like his importance.
It is nothing more than a lamb to the slaughter.
Exactly. That's the part that's just I don't mean to laugh so much.
But no, it is. It is. It's the.
But my God, like this poor wretch doesn't have a clue. Not a clue.
It's his self-importance throughout the film, and then to come down to meaning nothing more than to be used as a tool.
Yeah.
It is sort of that. It's terrifying to think of yourself just being worth nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's kind of probably some of the stuff. If you were to unpack individual people who are affected by in Holliday Mountain Madness, that's undoubtedly part of their psychic anguish. Because dealing with these forces leaves you at best completely, with complete servitude.
Yeah.
Right. At best, but at worst, you are,
because I say with the
screwed. So
with the Queen,
these are your tepophonic agents, right?
Yeah, because I thought those images are beautiful. Because I remember discussing it before, and because I'd not heard of the device before, we'd sort of talked about it. So I knew a little bit of sort of unusual experiments and devices that have been creative and ideas and things. But I was going to say, so are they, with them working underneath sort of the Queen, I mean, do they do it by choice? Or is it that, I mean, these guys were almost created to do the job. But You know, are they doing it by choice, or is it that they have sort of fallen under her spell and are choosing to unwillingly follow her?
That's not something, quite frankly, we haven't really developed it to that degree yet. You know, with regard to like the entities that they may touch on, you know, there might be a question about whether they are intelligent to the same degree that we are, in the same way. Not that they're unintelligent. I mean, one of the things that we wanted to do, I mean, it's interesting because you like urban legends and so forth. I really do too. And I like, one of the things that comes out, whether you believe that there's something to it or you believe it's a psychological phenomenon or whatever. But one of the things that I wanted to throw in here was an element of absurdity to the occult. And I don't mean absurd in the sense that, oh, who would believe this sort of thing, but absurd in the sense of the presentation. Because if you look at a lot of, and again, regardless of your belief system, if you just think this is a psychological manifestation of the way our brains work or whatever, I thought it was really fascinating. If you look at accounts of exorcism across different cultures, whether it's Roman Catholic or Greek Orthodox or Native American or Siberian shaman or what have you, one of the things that's common with the so-called entities that they encounter is this element of absurdity and of things being out of proportion. And even the names like Purple 32, or you get these bizarre names that really aren't like, you know, Pazuzu from The Exorcist. They're these kind of put together, you know, like anguish, or, you know, and it would be the same whether it was a Jewish exorcism to take place in Illinois or whatever, or something in Mexico City. And the imagery or what people would see would be horrific, but it would also be sort of, there would be a bizarre surrealism to it that sometimes it's not really captured in like traditional like demonic or whatever. And it kind of really, we talked about this a bit before, but it does touch upon a bit of the Chambers, Robert W. Chambers mythos, you know, which is sort of Lovecraftian, but they're not slimy tentacles. It's sort of like madness, you know. And then there's a resonance with old, you know, with old stories of like the Unseelie Court, you know, and the sort of the way the fairies, the bad fairies are sort of presented as sort of being absurd, like, you know, or doing nonsensical things or things that are really surrealistic and, you know, maybe would be more suited to a David Lynch movie or something like that. And that's something that we wanted to kind of touch on. I mean, as far as the actual order itself, they were mostly upper class Germans, you know, wealthy. You know, some nobility, a lot of like the new rich and so forth. And, you know, they're very much into cocaine and fast cars and all that sort of thing too. So
things that would warp your imagery as well. So their view of the world's going to be warped in the first place as well, you know, with which again,
this was, by the way, this is what I'm showing you now. This was the original design for her for a few years ago. And I had this idea that I was going to pitch to Bill, and that's so weird that I haven't remembered, but I had this idea for like a royal family of dark underling or dark sort of you know, like magic saturated, but like maybe with odd longevity, but they're becoming more and more inhuman as they go along, but they, you know, they use the terms like dowager or empress or, you know, lords and dukes and stuff, but they're basically like these distorted humans that no longer, I mean, they probably eat, you know, like they're probably cannibals for all we know. I don't know. But this is where the spider claws or something came out originally, was this character. And then I realized like that was how I was going to sort of take
I really
kind of glamour her up and actually make her quite beautiful and turn her into this other.
No, I like that concept though, the idea of sort of like going down the chain of commands, but also sort of having been warped by so much magic it starts to change their physical form, not just the way they're seeing the world. Because I mean, I think she's incredibly glamorous and incredibly beautiful. So I mean, I don't look at her and see, you know, oh yeah, spider claws, you know, oh, that's unpleasant. You sort of see her and you're like, well, that's very elegant, and she looks powerful, and she doesn't sort of look look like somebody you'd want to mess with at all.
So this was something I also wanted to show Bill. I found a lot of pictures online from a couple of films, and they're experimental films. And this is actually from one that came out in the 90s or something. And it's this kind of film that now has this almost creepypasta urban legend about how like there were evil spirits that were clearly in the faces of the people pretending to I don't remember the story, but I know there was some occultism in the story, and there are these people who are completely obsessed, and it's total nonsense, but they're totally obsessed with these frames
Nice.
from the film.
Almost as if there's like demons within the people that are almost, you're able to see
Exactly.
them between the frames
Right.
if you look right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one.
Oh, see that? Yeah, but those images are really cool though. You're sort of, it's
They're great.
yeah, that is really
Find
cool.
another one. Hold on. Where's the other one?
I like that when it's sort of like photos where it's just an average photo, but something about there may be a shadow or something is cast across it, and it changes the entire way you view it. But yeah, those are really clever. But so you.
This might be. Oh yeah, this is definitely one of them. Here, let's see.
Oh yeah. So there's people that thoroughly believe that there is something within the film or something within the people that are acting. Oh, okay.
Like this is actually somebody's arm or something, and then it obviously has this like
face almost
weird. Yeah, almost like
looks like hair. Yeah, it does. It looks like a hair and a face. And
yeah, looks like Ringu or something. You know.
That is really strange.
That McGregor mouth.
There's another. This is another shot from the film. That's actually an actor who's made up that way though, but I still kept it. But yeah, these are things that I've been collecting because I want the sequence in the beginning of the. Well, actually, all throughout, like this fight with the father, it has to have this kind of, because I know Bill's been very clear with me and reinforcing this notion of like things need to look like time space is warping and weird things are happening, not just that he looks like a monster. In fact, he shouldn't really look like a monster other than the fact that he's been dead for a while. But past that, like he's actually quite, I don't want to say normal, but what it is that there are distortions that would look like blurs and speed and you know, in other words, like where you can't clearly define what the hell is going on, but you know that he's there and he's coming at the house. And I finally found through this film and some other like really weird, just I started looking for distorted photos from a long time ago, weird pictures that basically like psychic, or there's our Crowley.
Yeah, young Mr. Crowley.
That is the age. That is the actual.
The age that you're going with.
Yeah, 12 or 13, whatever he was.
So well, if you want over the next.
Look at that innocent little face.
Yeah. I say if you want over the next week, I can go. I can spend a bit of time in my free time and see if I can get you any more images, like naturally distorted images. I'll pop them into the was it Instagram? Is it Instagram? No, it was Pinterest where I was picking up bits. I can pop them into there if you want me to sort of have a look for some more stuff.
This kind of ghost face, I guess, for lack of a better term, is definitely. I finally like found the right thing because it's just been hard to like kind of.
That's great.
It's hard to come.
Yeah, that is really good.
So this is fascinating. So that movie, they're seeing these ghostly faces and stills from the movie. Is that it?
Yeah, basically, like. Yeah, but the thing is, it has to do more with like shooting on film and then converting film over to video to edit. And, and there's a thing called 3:2 pull down, and it has to do with the difference between 24 frame per second, which is film, and then 29.9 or 30 frame per second for video. And so when that happens, inevitably there is a 3:2 frame conversion pull down, which means that there are going to be frames that are images are split between two. What in film you would see two distinct images. You would see a distinct image every time, but you will get these kinds of weird looking distortions because it's trying to average between two frames, right? Sometimes you'll actually get a split, and sometimes people will elect to delete those frames. But yeah, so you get this like weird stuff happening, but it's really making people nutty.
It's
I like
very cool.
But it's not for nothing.
No, there's definitely something. It does look like there is something there. It doesn't look, it does really look like something. But I mean, that previous image has almost made me think of the
another one.
The two masks, the tragedy and the other one. Where there's the down mouth. Yeah, tragedy comedy. There we go. That's what it looked like. It was almost morphed into one. That's really cool.
Like this scene, I looked at it, and it's really just a woman arguing with and having this like, she's kind of like completely she's clearly like, you know, demoralized or something, but she does not look like a weird demonic crone with that strange gaping mouth. Like, no way she looks like that. So it's like, yeah, and it's rife with it. This movie is rife with these events. But I think of it as like,
it almost looks like she's wearing a mask.
Right. Well, and what's of course like fascinating about this stuff to me is that either way, like Bill was talking about the other, I forgot what it was, you know, but whether it's a purely psychological phenomenon or it's an actual supernatural phenomenon is immaterial in a way. What's important is to acknowledge that human beings really resonantly react to things like this. This is something that is absolutely neurologically antagonizing. And so understanding those things is really important, I think, to creating images for stories, you know, because if you get that, if you don't like sit there and just have your bias about whether this thing exists or doesn't exist, and just simply download yourself into the imagery of it and how it really makes people react, you'll come up with some very interesting things.
It's like it's human nature's desperation to find meaning. It has to mean something. It can't just be a distorted image. It's that looking for patterns as well. You know, if there's one, there must be more.
And I mean, this face, I mean, I interpret it as female. I don't know for sure either way.
I
mean, clearly she has these fissures in her face that could be mouths, but they're certainly not right wherever they are. There's distortion that looks almost dead, and then there's eye placements that look wrong, completely wrong, and almost as though there are two faces being fused together. Maybe. Yeah,
I mean that's what I thought. It's almost like it's
so
one
weird.
Face and another face, just almost smushed together. It's so weird.
Yeah, and it's disturbing, and it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant to look at.
No, it's not.
But that's the kind of thing.
Well, you say it's not pleasant to look at, but we're all sort of like going, "Oh wow, this is great." That's because we're twisted that way.
Yeah.
Right, and because we see where the gold is to mine. You know, like there's a tremendous amount of there's, you know, this is full of the color as you know, like this is rich with the color. It's a rich find, you know.
It's almost like you need to take sort of an average photograph or an average collection of people and look at them through sort of a heat shimmer you get coming up from the ground and just photograph that distortion on people.
And
that would be fascinating.
That's something that Bill's talked a lot about, is heat shimmer.
Oh, heat shimmer is amazing for how it affects things.
Now this is something you guys will find kind of funky. This is another experiment I did. So now I have to apply it to drawing, right? It'd be easy if it was just a fumetti where everybody was an actor and, you know, like that, right? But like this was just a drawing I did of the father. I was like, all right, maybe this is how I'm gonna, you know, I was doodling, you know.
Yeah.
So that, I think this works pretty well. But now I have like, he has like a little extra eye, which is definitely making it a little weird, and his bizarre grin. But you know, he doesn't look like he's not a zombie, you know. But then I found this online tool that allows you to do kaleidoscopes out of anything that you throw up in it, right? Any image. So then I did that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And right, yeah, go ahead. That's really kind of what, that's not like, it's weird. It's like it's disturbing, and like look at these like places where the mouths intersect, and now suddenly we have this thing that almost has clitoral qualities or something.
Yes,
like, really
it is.
Weird.
Yeah.
There's strange things start immediately happening, and then here's another one.
Right.
Oh, brilliant.
Some like fleshy, and look at the pentagrams.
It's I know, as I say, it's like a fleshy snowflake.
It's and some kind of almost like clearly like it goes straight to Cthulhu. Some you know, there's more.
I say it's almost like it would be a lot of fun to put one of those images into the Google Dream thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
And have it play off on that. That would be fun. Oh wow. And again, falling back into the star shapes and stuff, very much.
So Bill, you can see like this is what I'm planning. I'm planning to use that tool to like execute this kind of stuff, because or do it in Photoshop, you know. But still, but here's another one.
Right.
You know, that like flanging, fleshy, and you immediately turn it into flesh, right? And then look at these very, very, very precise geometries happening.
Yeah, I mean, it feels it's very weird, because it's like the image itself is very sort of, when you're saying it fleshy, it feels quite natural and organic. And when you're putting it into such a harsh shape, it's so contrasting. It's really weird to look at, but like in the best kind of way.
Which is how some people who practice certain kinds of mysticism will say that, like, these entities are being pushed and rammed into some form of prime material existence, and that's why sometimes the pressure, literally feeling intense air pressure or psychic pressure, or both, like in your skull even, right, Bill? And but literally this being is pressured into an existence that can only look distorted, because there's no like perfect way to like translate whatever this thing is, this multi-dimensional thing is out there, into a two-dimensional body. So like and there's another, this is a great one actually, because those are all teeth in the middle.
Brilliant. They'll say this
And these flanges are the hair on the top of his head. See? These are the chins, kind of. So like imagine that thing like flopping down out of four-dimensional space onto your head.
Right.
We'll get some very subtle tweaking out of it too, which is interesting. Like this almost at a flat plane.
Yeah.
But kind of weird. There's another one that just I can't even look at it for very long, because it's just so like looks like the inside of a maw of a J.J. Abrams monster. And
it's just, once you've got, if you choose to, add color to those, it's just going to be mind blowing.
Oh yeah,
right.
I said there's a collection of films, and it's probably not your, I don't know if it'd be a sort of thing. They called they were VHS.
Oh, this was the original drawing, by the way.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Oh, I like the way his eyes almost just sort of sinking down his face.
So my idea was like, oh, he's a little weird, but it's like not completely out. And then and then things are kind of. So this is kind of like where you're talking about, Bill, right?
Yeah,
a little bit anyway.
Absolutely.
It's not all the way, but it's definitely in the ballpark.
Right.
But like imagine the eye is literally sinking down his face, like his eye socket is like slowly traveling down.
It makes me think of The Thing, where they look almost look normal, when things start to slowly poking someone in the face, that's to gravitate. And you're like, that's not. Is that normal? Is that not normal? What's?
Yeah.
I like that. I really do like that in that image. That's brilliant.
All the kinds of things that make you do a double take.
Yes. Yeah, and it would be that sort of like, I'm sure I just saw that. You look back again and they're completely normal again, and it's like, did I just see? But I mean, you get that in public though. I mean, sometimes have you ever sort of had that? You've been out in a crowd and you're I'm sure I just saw, and you look back again and say, no, it's just a normal person. But for that few sort of seconds, it's sort of like, did I just see something I really shouldn't be seeing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are strange.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So so that's what's going on. So, a page is done, and now I'm finally on that track. I've got the 2 paid gigs I have to get through also, which means I may not get a page a week done right now this month, but I should be on a better track than that very, very soon.
Well, I mean, you had allergy attacks, and then with it being Christmas as well, I kind of expected both of you guys to be busy. And, Bill has been off being a lawyer and everything, so.
Yeah, exactly. But it's time. It's time to, now is the winter of our content.
Yes, not discontent, or content.
Yeah, but it's all good. So, it's probably would have been more realistic to say February and just say that, but because I wasn't really thinking about the holidays. So that's where we're at. I know that Bill has to. Well, are you going to start writing the next part?
Sure. I mean, it's written up until to the end of this sequence.
Right.
But
I didn't know if you were going to.
Sure.
Move forward.
In some ways, it's good to see what you draw, because then it like.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, I mean, it's plotted out. It just hasn't been broken down to individual papers.
Yeah. And things can change by the end of the real thing. So that's true.
Right.
So that's all. That's what's going on.
Yeah. So you're looking for. Is it 2 more pages you're aiming for by sort of in February time, or is it the second page that you're aiming to have done in February?
What I'd like to get done by February is backtrack to what is really page 1 of the second book, and maybe at least I would like to get that whole initial sequence of him, running at the house and all the stuff that happens in basically page 1 of that script.
Yeah, before it then leads into this other story at the party.
Yeah, and what I did was I actually just it's the typical problem that I have, which is see if I can find the layouts for that. Hold on. It's this typical thing because Bill writes something, and it's really good. And then like I get kind of like, excuse me, it's sort of, it inspires me. And then I see like, oh, what would happen if like in a movie, let's say, or maybe the next episode of a TV show, because basically what was done already would qualify as the pilot, right, or the first episode. But what would happen in the second one? And I thought about how the first issue begins with a slow burn into, him just on the horse and just plodding along, and his arm is bleeding, and then he comes to the door, and even to get to the door, it takes another page or so. And then he gets this dream sequence, which is clearly his resurrection, right? Which takes a while, a lot of pages. So I thought maybe I would do that as a sort of pattern every chapter, which is like there's this slow beginning or slow period that gets you into the start of the story. And so like this one, and I can't seem to find my notes. I know I scanned them, so they're definitely on my computer somewhere. But the idea of my idea was that like rather than him just simply running down the hill and all this distorted stuff happening around him, I have this thing that I sketched out, and it was just like, he's standing there and he's heaving, and he's like, it's sort of like to give you an idea of just how like completely inhuman he is in terms of his mental state and stuff. And then when he finally decides to run, he turns around and like there's the grave where he was. I mean, there's a grave, and there's a cross in there, right? And he pulls out this timber cross, and as soon as he does that, fingers start to grow out of the ground, and fit his face, and other things are starting to, like distort, and he literally just walks off the edge of the hill and drops, and then he gets to the ground, and then he starts running at the house, and he's running, and there's enough distance so that it takes a few panels, and he runs, and then finally he just like stops in the snow, jumps in the snow, like skids, and hurls the cross from the grave through the front window of the house.
Right.
And I thought like that would be like really crazy. Like, in other words, it's just another thing to terrorize this family or something like that. Like, just throw it. Here's this sacred object, and of course, it's got to be it's his headstone, right?
Yeah,
so it's almost like
imagine. Yeah.
So imagine he's like using he rips out his headstone, and he tears the window. He just shatters the window with it. So that's what my idea is, and I'm gonna do that. So, but that takes like 5 pages to do that. And especially looking at it from more of a classic Japanese comics perspective or a film perspective. So I wanted to have a scene that took Bill's idea of like the same stuff happens, but it's stretched out, and it's like there's steam coming off of him because he's just like, he's so worked up and hot, and it's almost like there's this boiler engine coming at the house.
And saying I like the way you're talking about it, sort of he's changing, sort of like causing that change in what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, there's environmental changes like Bill described, that
because
because of the nature of this distorted demonic influence it actually distorts, like,
That's what I was. Yeah, that's
know,
what I mean. That's why I like the idea that he is. It's almost coming off him in waves. It's distorting. The ground's becoming distorted, and the trees are becoming distorted, and everything around him is
Right.
becoming.
Right.
So as part of him.
Yeah. So that's the thing that Bill, has had in there, and so my thing was just to take that thing, the exact same sequence he wrote, but like stretch it in actions and time to get it like to actually like to just I don't know, it still is weird, but then there's this ghastly kinetic end to it, almost like a pressure builds up and then this boulder crashes through the house, kind of, or
Yeah.
into the house, and of course I see like the family screaming because whose name is on that cross, or they know whose cross that is, they know what that is, like it's. But even if that guy was just a normal person, that would still be terrifying, right?
Yeah, even if it wasn't him throwing the cross, it's going to be absolutely devastating for them to suddenly have something that means so much to them thrown in the house, and then it's the realization that it's him, and what he's become is just that would be absolutely terrifying.
So I don't know. I mean, do you like that idea, Bill?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I thought it would. I don't know. It's one of these things where I was just kind of like I'm just like free associating on all of it, and suddenly this Sam Peckinpah or Toby Hooper kind of thing came into my head,
Right.
and it was like, how would sometimes like what I do is like I just think like, well, how would this guy direct that scene? Like, what would they do? Like, what might they do? And I, and that's where some of this stuff comes from too, because I thought like, because also he's essentially a monster. I mean, no matter how much is implied or whatever about him, a lot of people might react to him as simply just a monster, right?
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was like show that he was physical. It's like he's not just a demonic force. There's still like there's still human aspects to him, like, right? Like I see him as like in this fever pitch, and he's crazy. Like, so if he was only just a crazy person, the father had run off in the woods and I don't know what, like lost his mind, like, like what would that person be like? And it'd be like they'd be like giggling and the cockeyed and
it's not just that he's some monster that's come back from the grave.
Right.
He
He's
is a man.
Right, and he's out in the winter, and he only has the clothes that he was buried in, right? So that's a shirt and the pants and the suspenders. Might not even have shoes on because they rarely. A lot of times.
Well, one problem though, that's so good, and it probably can't be his because remember where he comes from, and I don't know if we went into this maybe a session or two ago, but this is initially there was a slot in a what was it? There was not a compendium, but there was a graphic novel, and there was like I think 29 pages that were available or what have you. And so I was like, I have to make an intro story that sort of like shows who Holliday is and his abilities and the sort of like the dynamics of the world. And there's this really scary 70s anthology show, and I can't recall the name of it. And there's this one great little episode where the mother is, she's grieving and she does this magical ritual and her little boy comes back who had been dead, but the little boy turns out to be a demon, right? That he didn't want to come back to you, so he sent me instead. And my like, I don't know if you ever saw it. It was great. I was like 10 years old. I was like, oh, no. And so I thought, I mean, the only problem is, Greg, is that remember what Holliday finds out. His stuff doesn't work against this guy. He's getting his ass handed to him.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right. And then and he goes, "Oh my God!" So the posse that I was
that would blow the reveal.
Okay, well, that's true.
Right. No. I'm saying like if it went like I'm talking about, that would ruin the reveal that you have later.
Well, not really. Well, that's true. That would also.
So I have to. So it could be something else. It's very easy to have it be something else.
Right.
I originally had this idea that the horses were chained up somewhere, and that maybe like he you don't see it on frame, but then he's got this big thing with him, and because everything's blurred, you can't tell what. It's almost like he's got a ball and chain or something like that, right? And then. at the critical moment when he hurls it, it's all blurring, but there's blood like going, like a gallon of blood going from his hand, like an arc, you know. And
Right.
then what crashes through the window is his horse's head.
Yeah, or yeah, that or gravestone, as long as it's not his, because
Right.
he, I mean, do we do spoilers here or no? We don't, or do we?
I guess it doesn't matter because I'm not sure that many people are watching. It's really
Right.
A lot
So
of this is more for our own purposes, but
just for explanation, Pippa, that what happens with, you know, Holiday fights entity, gets his ass handed to him, gets pushed back into the house. You know, initially in the beginning of this story, he was like, "You got to get out of here. This is posse on my ass. It basically will tear you guys apart. They're bad people." Well, he goes into the basement and he sees the posse down there all ripped up and sort of Blair Witch style with their entrails and sigils. Yeah. And what happened was the posse had already come there and they killed the father but the mother's a witch. And so after some, you know, a rape and a drunken interlude, she gets up and she calls back what she thinks is her husband, but what came back wasn't her husband. So the husband makes short work of the posse and pulls them apart. But now we've got this demon here, essentially. She thought it was the dad coming back to protect, and so that's why there wouldn't be a grave, because he wouldn't have been buried yet. He would, you know.
Oh, that's right, because he just runs up in the hills, kind of.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, so I think I'll just go back to the horse.
Right, that's great too.
Because that's also really nasty and really weird. I also thought it could have been Holiday's horse, because Holiday's horse has got to be chained up somewhere out there.
Yeah, that's great. That's even better.
In the barn. I mean, in the barn, but nevertheless, you know.
What could be really, really cool, and don't hold this would be if everything he's touching distorts. If the horse's head was still a little bit alive when it went, and it's ending up in the house, and it's still got a bit of movement to it, would be kind of
well, it could even be talking. It could even be talking.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Is if that's affected by him as well, and it's still.
Well, it could say like he wants his supper. He wants his supper.
Yeah.
That's the mantra of that.
Yeah.
That man is, you know, I want my supper. You know?
Right. The other big horror. I mean, the other thing I wanted to explore with this particular entity.
That's good. That's actually good. That's actually
that's great.
That's
it's what you would want to see if you were watching a horror movie. But
yeah, I would want to see the head come to life. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I like this idea too. That, I mean, hopefully the big horror effect I'm looking for is when you know it's obvious the boy's been devoured. He's speaking out through the entity. You know. I'm here, mommy, with dad. You know, this idea that, you know, this entity devours you and you continue to live on in this sort of twisted afterlife is a part of it, which is, if you do it right, it can be pretty scary, I think.
No, we are legion. No, we are multiples.
You know, plus when it's a kid, it's
right.
Oh God, yeah. I just when you were talking about this, the child being brought back from the grave and being the story, Bill, that you'd seen, it just made me go Pet Sematary with the little boy being brought back by the parents, and it's not what you brought. You know, it's not the same thing that you brought back.
You know, that's funny. That's interesting. I forgot about that, and that was actually this particular show even predated Stephen King's story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And Stephen King consumed all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I would imagine that, you know, it had to have filtered in. It's a common theme though, and it's a good horror theme.
Yeah, the demon child. It's innocent corrupted, isn't it? It's.
And my favorite version of all of those, although it's more science horror, sci-fi horror, whatever you want to call it, almost really pre-body horror, is the Midwich Cuckoos. And I don't know if you guys know this movie.
The name is very, very, very familiar, but I guarantee I won't have seen it, unfortunately.
Midwich Cuckoos is originally a novel, and it's a British story.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounded.
Let's see if I can. And it appears in the movie, the Midwich Cuckoos, but it also appears later in Village of the Damned, which is an adaptation of it, and then there's the Damned, which is kind of like a remake in 1964.
Oh, in '95, yeah, they did a.
And then '95, there was another remake, which kind of looked okay, but it was, you know, pretty. You know, like in a lot of ways, pretty horrible. But let's see here.
Sailing on the theme that there's nothing quite as scary as a child.
Yep.
In the right circumstances.
And here we go.
That's great, right there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Black Eyed Kid phenomenon, 60s style.
There you go.
Put them out black
Blonde,
eyes.
you always avoid the blonde children.
Right, and it's and there are, and you know, there's these in this story. It's like inexplicably, although it's intimated that it must be alien influence. Random children around the world are born with, you know, unbelievably overpowered psychic and intellectual ability, and they are to take over, to subjugate, something like that. But in the case of the original Midwich Cuckoos and the movie Village of the Damned, the children are immediately bunkered up by scientists, and they're studying them, and ultimately there's the question about, you know, what do we do with them, because they're going to basically take over.
Yeah, I was going to say Midwich. The Midwich doesn't exist, but it's based in an area called Wiltshire. That's where Stonehenge is.
Right. That's perfect then. That makes perfect sense that they would, you know.
Salisbury is there, and
And then there's this picture, which you'll totally recognize, because this is the
that's the 70s one, wasn't it?
That's the what
was it,
was
60s?
1995 or something like that.
Oh, was it the 95 one? Uh-huh.
That's when the second remake. The first movie was in 1960. The remake was in 1964, and then the much later remake by John Carpenter was 1995 or 7, and actually had Christopher Reeve in it, which was
so creepy.
But they, you know, the only thing that this movie has going for it, because it's actually quite horrible, but what it does have going for it is John Carpenter soundtrack and special effect glowing eyes, and, you know, a few little bits and pieces, but for the most part, it's not very good.
Ooh, Mark Hamill's in it.
Really?
Yeah, he's Reverend George is Mark Hamill.
I was not aware of that. This is the shit, though.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's some really neat things, like one of Garbage's first videos. What was it called? Push It has this. It's the entire thing is these like strange like creatures that that the lead singer of Garbage is like her boyfriends or something. So one of them is like a man in a business suit with a light bulb for a head, and another person is like a person who looks like scratched film walking through a supermarket. But
I know what you mean.
And they're each time they're getting abducted, but these children with a bunch of like weird sci-fi gadgets, like detecting, you know stuff, and like canes. They walk into the house where the light bulb guy is, and basically, like abduct him. And so these little weird, psychic children are, like working for the government or something like that. And I remember there was a really good story in the Alan Moore run of Captain Britain, which is, I'm dating myself now because this is like late 80s or something, but there was a Midwich Cuckoos or something like that, of these kind of alien infused people that had alien powers, and they were working for the government. And one set of are a bunch of little weirdos that look like this, and they're hyper intelligent, and they know more than you. They can read your mind, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. They're just.
Yeah. See, that makes me think of if you saw the TV series Stranger Things.
Oh yeah,
just finished
with 11 being that child, the child in the facility that could sort of affect your mind and was a weapon. And
I mean, 11 is really one of those kinds of characters, only filtered through a Steven Spielberg lens and turned into a kind and giving child.
Yes, because whereas most children are take, and to see that with that much power would be
right. Yeah, or
terrifying.
at the very least, they're always depicted as scary and evil.
Yeah.
And that's something that clearly Spielberg changes fundamentally, is this idea of the monster as victim, and the alien that's scary in the old days is actually the alien that is really the most innocent and actually the most potentially abused. So it's interesting, like
an ET story.
It really, really changes with Star Wars, and Well, I guess it starts to change with the original Star Trek, where it starts to like empathize with the alien instead of turning into the brutal menace all the time. But really until Star Wars and then like movies like E.T. or Close Encounters, that's when the real fundamental change happens.
Yeah, because they humanize them more so than I mean, sort of the huge difference. I think that's why people enjoyed Aliens so much as well, or Alien, was because things had started to become humanized, and then you have something that is so far from what you would expect, and just so it's a killing machine. It has there is no humanization, there is no sense of morality,
total brutality.
Yeah,
like the brutality of a snake or the brutality of a scorpion or something.
Exactly, and it takes it straight back to that. They're here to destroy you, rather than, hi, actually, I'll help you phone home.
That's why actually Prometheus, I was so mesmerized by Prometheus, and I know a lot of people think that movie is like just garbage or something, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell to say, but and I know Bill and I have talked about that movie a lot too, because there's a lot of people don't realize that there's clear bulletproof comparisons you can make between the builders in Prometheus and the entire what is it, Urdu or Babylonian myth cycle of the star people who come from the sky and actually build the human race.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because it's like clearly one of the builders corresponds to Enki, because ultimately Enki not only makes these proto-humans that are servants, but then later makes the full humans. But Enki cuts his own head off and gives it up, and his entrails are given up to make the human race.
Yeah,
which is identical to the beginning scene. The builder drinks the
poison sort of thing,
and then is broken down so that the DNA can be inserted into the life cycle of the planet, right? And also Enki has a dog, but Enki's dog is kind of a mistranslation. It's really like kind of a demon creature, but effectively it's his dog, right?
Yeah.
And if you look in the hieroglyphics, there's a scene where they flash their flashlights up and you see the dog, you see the alien, you see the four-legged creature, and it's just like, so I just think if people had a better cultural literacy, I think they'd appreciate that movie a lot more.
Well, there's something that's been sort of I suppose in crypto news and things recently, where they're sort of talking about how there's so much news of alien abductions, and the fact that it almost always is of a sexualized nature.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to say, well, it could be for years and years and years that actually there are human hybrids walking the world. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that eventually these hybrids are going to start to breed and create full, aliens that will dominate the world. But it's the fact, it's that kind of, because it's always sexually related stuff when people talk about sort of being abducted, that they are the sort of, like, it was a big thing. It was up on Facebook yesterday. I have to find the link to share with you because it was really weird. So yes, people are starting to say, well, if it's always sexual and there's so many people saying it's happening to them, there's bound to have been some weird genetic modification happen at some point, and there's going to be aliens walking the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I've really been fascinated with for a long time is just the kind of narrative value of like conspiracy theories and so forth. It's interesting. Like, you can get the weirdest conspiracy theory, and a lot of them are, there are a lot of strains of them and so forth, and people really believe in them. But if you approach them just as stories, they're quite good. The whole race, like the whole, that was a theme in X-Files, obviously, but this whole idea of like, there's a whole skein of conspiracy theories around this so-called government research station in Montauk, New York, and and people truly believe in it, and they relate it to the Philadelphia experiment. And I remember reading about it, and I was like, this is actually not a bad story. It's actually pretty gripping. It's pretty interesting.
Oh,
and I
great.
think there's a lot of untapped, like what you were just talking about, Pippa, is a lot of untapped, I think, purely from a story standpoint, I think also it's sort of a testing ground. I mean, if you if you are captivating people's imaginations on social media with story X or image X or Y, it's probably a pretty good place to grab, material.
Oh yeah, I mean, my favorite one is Mothman.
Right, Mothman's great. That's great. I didn't like the movie, even though I wanted to like the movie. I've been a Mothman fan for many decades. As Craig will tell you, he has too.
Yeah, I didn't. The movie it didn't do it for me because it didn't really match what the actual legend and story was. It was very much more some bloke repeatedly turning up in a house and getting lots of weird phone calls.
Right.
Well, although that is the experience of John Keel. I mean, the thing is, it's partially based on the Mothman Chronicles, which was Keel's sort of trying to explain to people what he went through investigating the whole thing.
But one thing that's missing from the movie is the bizarre, surreal, hallucinogenic quality of what he encountered, and they left a lot of that out.
Yeah. And that's where and that's where I agree with Pippa and you. It's like it was a disappointing film because if you've read the book by Keel, you're like, did you read the book, or like did you even care?
Right.
Yeah, it's almost like they took a lot of stuff out to get an age rating on the film where it could be seen.
Right.
Yeah, and also I think a time thing. I think it's like it needed to be a certain length, and so they just. Yeah. But there are plenty of adept people out there. I think it's just it's like, crappy screenwriting, crappy directing, and no real. Because of course, in the end, nobody who worked on that film, believes it. And even if you don't have to believe it, but like at least they're not, you could tell that the people who made the film were not like really juiced up about it.
No.
So
how are they going to come up with insights or ways to make things work?
If they don't care about the story.
Yeah.
Sorry, on a completely different note, just what we previously talked about, the convention I'm going to in February?
Yeah.
The guy that actually played the engineer in Prometheus is going to be there.
No way, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, this is the Comic-Con. My other half actually helps organize it. So he's going to be there. The guy that played the engineer. So that's really cool.
Wow.
It's too bad that he can't be in the makeup and costume because that's an excruciating process.
There'll be lots. There'll be lots of people in costume. It's just like, have you seen Game of Thrones and stuff, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when Daenerys ends up at the city where there's all like the different leaders and they've all got far too much money, and there's the magic guy, the really weird one that could like make himself appear lots and change and distort things. So he's going to be there as well.
Wow.
So that's going to be really cool.
See, that's what I'm waiting for. Actually, is some real like engineer cosplay. That would be very, very cool to see if it was done right.
I mean, if somebody does it. Lots and lots of people being costumes. The Scott and Keith, who's the guy that's created the Comic-Con in the first place. It's a big charity event. It's not like the regular ones where it's like, oh yeah, they make money off people that are coming to do the event. But it's all charity. They raised £37,000 for a children's hospice last year. So same thing again this year. They are costumers. That's what they do. They're from Rebel Legion.
Yeah, it's just like a particular costume that's incredibly dense and probably.
Oh yeah, it's just the prosthetic work to it is just amazing looking.
Plus, the entire body work is like doing a form-fitting alien costume that flexes, and it's just. I would just think it would be tremendous.
This is if I get a chance, I'll ask him how it was done.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll probably get opportunity to speak to people. So
yeah. Plus, they had to find an actor who would be physically pretty big. He's a big fella.
Yeah. So it's like.
But you also have another Prometheus connection because there was that major scene was shot. The beginning sequence, the cave sequence. Didn't they actually shoot it in Scotland? I know in the story it takes place in Scotland, but didn't they actually shoot in Scotland?
Oh, I'll find out.
Yeah. So whoops. So that would be kind of fun if you had that, kind of connection to it also.
Yeah, it's like I just get jealous about people getting to actually meet Old Man of Store in Scotland. Yeah, that is. Yeah. It's like my other half got to go and hang out with the guy that played Darth Vader in Rogue One recently. So I was quite jealous of that and stuff like that he gets to do. So yeah, he got invited to a red carpet event in Wales. So he had to come all the way from Scotland to Wales to go to this red carpet event and stuff like that. It's just like, jealousy.
I need to get moving.
Oh, no problem.
Because of the kid stuff, and
yeah, it's been awesome. We'll have to schedule more.
What's that? I didn't quite hear you guys.
Oh, I was just going to say we'll have to get more stuff scheduled to meet up again and sort of get a routine back on stuff again.
Is Tuesday workable for you, Bill, or is Tuesday just really bad?
Tuesday I'm in court all day, but
Okay.
usually it's not too bad.
Okay. I mean, have things drastically changed for you, Pippa? Like, is Tuesday?
No, it's literally just I'm moving house, so any day in the week is fine. Any evening in the week that you would rather do. It's just Mondays I go to fitness club, so I'm kind of unavailable sort of earlier Monday evenings. But otherwise, so long as it's after a certain point, because I work until 12:30 Eastern time, and then I got to get home.
So, but for you, Bill, any weekday is really not going to work, right? Because of the time, because of being in the middle of the afternoon, right?
There won't be any weekday that I can just block off and say can't.
Okay, so then let's stick with Saturday. I was just because the reason I'm asking all this is so that I can okay, so what day? And it sounds like then Saturday is better.
Yeah, I mean, so it's only when I have. So it's like I know that I've got a horror convention on a Saturday coming up.
Right.
But most things I will have done before this time in an evening anyway.
Right, and I mean,
for me,
for the three of us, if I decide like it's worth it to do something before a Saturday, then you're free during the week. But I would rather it be the three of us. So.
Yeah, I mean, if the three of us can do it on a Saturday, that would be great. I'll certainly try and. I mean, if there's anything that I've got that's going to block me out, I'll let you know.
And then as far as like what you could be posting, I mean, you were on a really great track before. I think probably we need to feed you more stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that page that I did and would be maybe a basis for that. And
yeah, that would be fantastic.
So let me just get some stuff together for you, and then.
Yeah, and if we're running off a theme of distortion and stuff like that, there's certainly a lot of things I can go into with that kind of stuff at the moment.
Yeah. So.
And I'll get back on the Pinterest to get some more distorted stuff up for you. So you've got just some more stuff there if you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I will, because clearly when it was running, people respond to your posting way more than when I was posting, which is really fun. I love it. I have no ego invested in it because of the outcome for one thing, but also I was like, half the time nobody can even tell who's posting, but somehow when you post, the reach through or whatever they call it is just clearly like twice or three times as high, and sometimes even more. And I'm like, this is very cool. So like obviously there's something in the writing clearly and something in the subject matter you're picking.
I tend to try and put my name on the end of it because I don't want somebody to come back and ask me. If somebody's asking me questions that I can't answer straight off, I don't want them to think that I'm one of you two. I'd be like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But what I thought was interesting is whether you had your name in there or not, you can chat, you can see it. And the only reason why any of the posts I've made have even more, they're not as high as yours, but have better than before, I'm certain is because of the momentum from, what mostly you're doing. But I just find it interesting that there's, whatever it is, some vibe or something, but they're connecting on whatever you're doing, and that's great. Like it's totally, it's like it's just fun.
No, I'll be back on. Man. Yeah,
it's like I get to like 5 reach or 14 or something like that. But you've managed to like I always see like back at that period it's like 45, 30 something, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's really great. So the only thing I want to get together with you about on Tuesday, if that's okay, or Wednesday, one of the
that's fine.
I want to get you a list of all of the weird Western and sort of slightly connected Facebook groups that are out there.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic if you can. Yeah,
because a lot of times I either like to post to
get posted places in there. Yeah, no, that's fine.
But a lot of times I also just like. And I know it's considered bad form, but I'll just throw links. I'll just say for other weird Western stuff and throw them in there. And that's how I developed a good relationship with the weird West punk or whatever they call it.
No, it's a great promotion tool. No, to go in because people are going to want to know. I mean, they
like to share. Like the few people, they like to share. So.
But it's also the fact that you're offering the ability to see the first book for free. if they're going to the site, which a lot of the people advertising, it's a buy only, and so that's why a lot of it will be very comfortable with what you're doing, because you've got something available to the public for free.
And hopefully I'm going to get some email answer on why this file is being rejected.
Yeah.
And get this thing straightened out for this week. Because the thing is, as soon as it's in the hopper, it's really easy after that. Comixology has I heard a longer approval process, although our friends Ethan Slayton, with his Dark Anna book, the pirate book, I don't think it took that long to get on Comixology. But I do know that it's like a process, and part of it probably has to do with them being so big, and the other part of it is probably now that they're hooked in with Amazon, there may be other factors. But essentially, it's like a process. You go through it, then it's in.
Well, that's the thing is, once it's up there, then that's going to be a nice way to actually get you getting some money back from what you're doing.
Yeah, because it would be a good way to do it
instantly.
It would be a good thing. So, all right. So anyway, so this is Holiday Mountain Madness graphic novel, strategy and catch up and process video. Excuse me. Apparently I'm turning into a longer. Creatively at my left is always on my left-handed path is co-creator, friend, and writer Bill Woodcock Jr. Wait, hold on a second.
I think there's a wave there.
There we go. And on my right is Pippa Bailey of the Ghoul Guides, and a writer in her own right, and doing a great job at internet marketing advice and a bit of muse action for the book, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I, in the middle, am today, at least, your host, Greg Giordano, artist and co-creator of Holiday Mountain Madness. Thanks a lot for being here, and thanks a lot for listening. I again encourage people to watch this show when we do it, because you may in fact want to make your own graphic novel. You may be in the process of trying to figure out a lot of things. We're very, I think, pretty set with drawing, writing, producing a book, in its own self. We're definitely learning things about marketing. We're definitely learning things about how to sell it in different ways. So I think that it's both from our experience and for just watching us kind of work these things out. I think a useful show, even if you're just not interested in the book, which you should be. You can read the book or most of the book online at Holiday with 2 L's, mountainmadness.com. The link's down below in the description stuff. We're also Holiday Mountain Madness on Facebook, Twitter. I think it's Holiday Comic. We have a Pinterest page. We have, I believe, a Instagram, although I'm not sure that that's populated yet.
No, Instagram's we're waiting for watermarks on images before we pop anything on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And of course, you can find Pippa Bailey at theghoulguides.com.
Yeah. We're up and running again. And you can find us on Facebook as well.
Yeah, but I think their most vivid interaction with their fans and to get the videos, you go to the Ghoul Guides YouTube channel. You go to the Ghoul Guides Facebook page, right? And Pippa Bailey herself, I believe, has her own website. She's a writer, and she's doing all kinds of horror stuff, and it's really so support that. Bill, you dropped the website, right?
Did I?
Your website. I mean, your.
Oh, I just dropped. That was the website where I had those paintings.
Okay. So I would say that you're obviously reachable through the Facebook page, and we do answer when we get messages and stuff. And at some point soon, there's going to be Holiday Mountain Madness will have its own YouTube channel for these videos to go to, and not have it be sort of mishmashed into my YouTube channel. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll be back next week.
Yep.
And I'll definitely have some artwork to show, and we'll go over other stuff that we go through in making our own indie comics. So anyway, make your own comics, and thanks a lot for your support, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.
Bye.